Welcome to Good Morning Hospitality, your one-stop shop for the latest news, noteworthy trends, and thought-provoking discussions across the industry. From hotels and short-term rentals to all things travel and hospitality, you'll find each episode equips you with the information that you need to start your week. Join us on Good Morning Hospitality every Monday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello, hello.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Come on, Michael. Where's the best day of the week?
Best day of the week. Everybody already knows it, though.
I know, but that's going to be our new tagline for our merch. We're going to create, shirts and hoodies are going to say just best day of the week right there.
If you hate Mondays, I feel bad for you.
Amen. Amen. Well, hey guys, you want to know what's fueling me up this morning?
Tell us.
What's powering the engine right now?
Don't say wine.
It's not
already.
coffee. It's not coffee, and it's definitely wine, or AKA summer water, because that's how we roll at Good Morning Hospitality. Finally, an ad and a sponsorship that I can fully be myself on and not have to be scripted, because I'm just drinking wine out of my cup on a beautiful Monday morning, 8 a.m., baby. Let's go.
So we should have a compare
anyways.
contrast between you now and you at the end of the episode.
100%. If I start slurring my words a little bit and maybe going off into a rampage, that's why. But no, shout out to Sojo. They have partnered with a company called In Good Taste, and so it's a wine box curated for your vacation rental or your property in general. And what you can do is you can use the link in our show notes and get your own wine box and test it out. Let us know how you like it, because I love it and it's great. So shout out to Sojo, and thanks for sending off the wine, because we need another box by next week, maybe. So
I can't wait. Mine is waiting for me at home in Miami, so I'm excited to try it.
So this is officially like the second half of a morning show where they just start doing episodes and drinking wine.
Yeah.
We should actually open up. Maybe we'll do a late night version. You guys open? You guys down?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Like a happy hour.
Good evening hospitality.
Yes, exactly.
The PM version, the night shift. I love it. This is good. So shout out to Sojo. Link in the show notes. Grab your wine box there from In Good Taste. We love working with Sojo. It's been awesome. And of course, cheers. So Jamie, welcome back to the show, my friend. How was Nashville? We saw that you got to be at the Hotel Data Conference. What big takeaways did you have there?
Yeah, so Nashville, the Hotel Data Conference, is one of my favorite conferences of the year. They have 750 people of just pure data nerds. Like
your people,
revenue of which you're a star, right?
Yeah.
And could not have been more fun for me digging into the data. They had 18 presentations with slide decks ranging from like 10 to like 80 slides. So
your eyes just lit up at 80 slides.
80.
Yeah. So one of the things we've been talking about how strong the US is. We've been talking about how strong sort of global travel's been. But just looking at the hotel data on just how good the rest of the world is doing right now in terms of hotel performance was eye-opening. Like, and I know we're going to get into it later in the show, but like US RevPAR is up 13% relative to 2019. Like, that's great. Like, no one was expecting the depth of COVID by 2023. We'd be 13% higher in terms of RevPAR. Like, I know my job was forecasting RevPAR. No one was predicting that. But like, you look at like Mexico, it's up 44%. Italy's up 35%. France is up 30%. Like, the performance in like global hotel performance right now is just, it's killing it. Like, it's actually
sustainable.
There's the question.
Well, I mean, like we've seen ADRs, RevPARs, and short-term rentals peak, and they're coming down in some major markets.
Yeah.
Not as bad as they're made out to believe in the media, but they are coming down.
with markets up 40%, do you not predict a 35% decline on the backside? Or
no, and the big piece there is supply. Like in most of these European markets, like if you look at the supply pipeline for hotels, it's like the US and China, and then the rest of the world. And there's just not that much supply being built. In most of these European cities, there's severe restrictions on short-term rental supply growth. So like there's all these people wanting to go to these destinations, and there's real pricing power in a lot of these markets just because you can't build new supply. So
I'm curious, what's it looking like for winter and kind of like the holiday season? I know I hate thinking about it. My goal this whole summer was like, I'm not going to travel. I'm just going to stay in Denver. And now it's August and everyone's asking me about travel plans. And, then I'm thinking about, Thanksgiving and Christmas and all the stuff. So was there any hope for sustainable, ADR RevPAR during that time? Or what do you think for the short-term rental hotel side?
Yeah, on the hotel side, they're still forecasting positive performance throughout the rest of the year, even with an expected recession. So we all use Oxford's forecast, which is calling for a mild recession in the back half of the year. So, and they've got occupancies coming down a bit in the back half of the year, but still strong rate growth. Like rate growth for hotels right now is pretty stout, and we'll get into it, but short-term rentals, and we had our first reported national decline in ADRs this past month. So, it's happening. Both Airbnb reported it in their earnings, Vrbo in theirs, Vacasa in theirs. Like ADRs are declining in short-term rentals right now, and that's sort of across the board. Not in hotels though. Hotels are still getting pretty good rate increases, which is sort of playing into some of the price competition with and a bit more affordability showing up on the short-term rental side.
Interesting. It's probably because they don't have all these cleaning fees, huh?
I got asked so many times, like, what's going on with cleaning fees and short-term rentals? Why are they so high?
Because it's a much bigger space we have to clean. I literally, I could go on a cleaning fee.
We just opened up a can of worms for Brandy. She's like, all right, get me out of here. Don't talk about it.
I've got the rant right with you.
We just redid kind of like our analysis of the this year and forecasting just what actually the real cost per turn is, and let me tell you, those cleaning fees are mild compared to what they could be. So
yeah, fun stuff. Well, I know this other topic that we kind of have covered for today isn't the most exciting in the sense of it's not always like the funnest part of our job when we get to share some sad news. Obviously, we all have seen what's happening in Hawaii with the fires and everything like that. So I would love to kind of open up this conversation in the sense of, one, our thoughts and prayers to everyone out there who either is hosting or traveling. Like, hope everyone's safe. We don't wish harm on anybody, obviously. I hope everyone's just obviously taking care of their family and themselves. And for you guys, we've seen kind of a similar pattern that happened with other tragedies and pretty bad events when it comes to travel, where OTAs give full refunds or they don't, and they kind of give it up to the host or the operator. With everything we've seen recently with the Maui fires, what do you guys think? Give me your thoughts, your perspective on what we've kind of seen with. Go ahead, Michael.
I'll cover a good one, which, when natural disasters happen or catastrophic events like this, travel companies are the ones that have the time to shine or not. And Southwest was offering $19 flights with, I think, free pet flights as well, for anyone that needed to or wanted to get out. So huge kudos to Southwest. Big help in the effort to relieve stress and pain. Vrbo also left it up to the owners whether to refund or not, but they did give the fees back to the travelers that didn't want to go to Maui. Brandy, can you take over?
Yes, and then and I hate that this is kind of like typical fashion, but then Airbnb is offering full refunds to all the guests. And from the guest side, this is great news. You're like, I just saved hundreds or thousands of dollars on my vacation that I'd planned. But again, this is kind of like a repeat of COVID, where the hosts are left holding the bag basically, and without any real control over what's happening. So Verbo refunds the part that they have, like that's their price, and are leaving it up to the host because it's their business. But Airbnb is just like blanket statement, you get your money back again. And if Airbnb was covering the cost of all of that, I would be like, that's incredible. Like what a gesture. But I highly doubt that's the case. If you're a Hawaiian operator and we're wrong and Airbnb is covering it, please let us know. But again, this is just, Airbnb is not the supplier. They're the marketplace. It's not their product. It's not their inventory. And so to make these decisions, again, without consulting or without really thinking about what the long-term impact of their suppliers are going to be, if you're going on vacation and you lose the money for your vacation, I'm sure that's a big hit. Like, it's what you've been saving up for. It's probably a big bummer. And I'm not denying the financial impact of that. But if you're the host whose home is, either physically impacted, or certainly travel demand for Hawaii is going to be suffering for a little while, like, this is not just one traveler's vacation that is impacting you financially. It is so much bigger than that. And so then you think about when there's like the recovery period for this. I don't know what they're projecting, but this is just also now hurting Airbnb's relationship with all of their hosts in Hawaii. And those are the people that probably need more support. This is such a huge natural disaster. It's many layers deep. And I think that this is just another example of just the blatant prioritizing of travelers, and not taking care of the whole ecosystem.
Well, I think you said it great earlier too, is that Airbnb needs to understand they are a marketplace. They are not the inventory. And I think that identity is missing in kind of what they think they are. I love Airbnb, and I will always be on, the side of trying to understand, like, okay, they're a great platform. They open up the industry to a lot of mainstream publicity and all the other stuff that kind of goes into it. We can all geek out about. But at the end of the day, they are a marketplace, and they are overstepping that marketplace boundary, which is controlling the inventory or what happens to the inventory. And I think that's just, Verbo did it 100% correct and went into the route that they can't control, and left it pretty much. They become Switzerland. They become neutral at that point, because they don't have to make that decision for the operator, but they also take care of the guests with, any type of financial relief they can do. Jamie, I'm curious for
a lot of the hosts would actually give the money back, right? It's not that they won't, but it's not their decision to make. So like Verbo, Expedia's neutrality is the right move. Let it default to the cancellation policies. But I think in terms of who's really done it right and done it well, I think Southwest nailed it. They added several flight routes through Hawaii to increase the amount of people they can pull out. But it is frustrating for those of us in the industry to see unilateral decisions made on our behalf without our say.
Yeah, and just to jump in, and you can see the decision process, though, both during COVID and during this fire. So globally during COVID, governments around the world were saying, do not travel. And Airbnb wanted to do their part to encourage people not to travel. And during these fires, like the Hawaii government saying, do not come to Maui if it's not essential travel. I think kudos to the Oahu government to dropping their restrictions on short-term rentals over this next month, to allow displaced residents to rent out short-term rentals within Oahu, even though it is illegal less than 30 days. So trying to open up the available supply. and it's got to be a hard decision on the Airbnb side of, you see the governments asking you to discourage travel wherever possible to the islands. And they don't have the infrastructure. They're putting everything towards the rescue effort, towards the recovery effort, and do not want people coming to the island and wanting to do their part. And yeah, obviously, and not necessarily a decision that everyone aligns with. So it's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah, I have like two kind of quick points on this, and the difference between Airbnb and Vrbo, for example, is I think a part of it that's big is who's the merchant of record. So a lot of times, I mean, I think almost exclusively on Vrbo, you are your own merchant of record. They haven't introduced any of those policies yet, but Airbnb is the merchant of record. So technically they own the guest in that like financial sense. So that's, you don't have any control over that unless you put like a stop payment on Airbnb, but that's probably not going to work well for you in the future. And then the second component of it is it's like you have to communicate. If you're going to say, okay, we're blanket refunding the guests, fine, if that's the decision, but there needs to be communication about this well in advance of actually doing it because of cash flow problems. If you think about like that's happened in COVID where just like $1 million left the bank account in one swoop, it's like that is huge. People allocate their cash differently. People plan how they spend their cash and hold their cash. And so if you say, hey, we're going to be refunding these guests, maybe like there's an installment system or like there's just a better way to structure that because people are managing their accounts differently. And so I think that that's also frustrating as a business owner when you're like, not only do I not have any control over whether or not these people are getting refunded, but I also like this could totally break someone's business because of one large like withdrawal that could totally mess up their cash planning for the rest of the month or the year.
Yeah. Damn. It's a good point. Really good point. On top of everything else, kind of moving us along to the next topic, if anyone from our audience listening or tuning into the live, feel free to add any comments. We'd love to make this as engaging for you as possible. But the next kind of story we have covered, Michael, I don't know, man. I feel like you weren't the biggest, fan of glamping in the earlier days as much as I was, and now I've seen you completely pull a 180 and join the glamping team. So I'm excited. But do you want to share the story of Outdoorsy?
Yeah, so Outdoorsy has allocated a $30 million fund to anyone who wants to add glamping to land that they own, and it's a win-win for everybody. It is financed, but it adds inventory to Outdoorsy's platform. Glamping is a hot segment. It's cool. But I think for the travelers, for the guests, for the property owners, this is a win. It's a cool way to travel, and opening up supply and opening up demand to it. It's how short-term rentals kind of kicked off. You get people used to staying in these places, and then they seek it out for their next trip. So yeah. Great move, Outdoorsy.
Yeah. And I don't know if you guys remember, but during our hospitality roundtable, glamping or experiential hospitality was one of my predictions. So just saying, put it out there. I did call it just out in January, but glad to see,
I thought you were crazy, but you nailed that one.
Dude, yeah. No, we just got to wait for my Vacasa prediction. Anyways, anyone have any comments to add to that besides, glamping fund?
I mean, I'm just
Randy?
so skeptical about about like the viability of this I mean, I think it's great. I love seeing this kind of activity. I think I might be the news. Like I've replaced Michael maybe as like the glamping skeptic.
I went to a site on Wednesday, 20 minutes from where I live in Auburn, Alabama on Lake Martin. And this site, it's called the Destination Glamping Resort. It's on about 100 acres. They have running water, air conditioning. They've built out 1 and 2 bedroom glamping units. Like it's basically better than a lot of the cabins you'll find on the lake. So you can do them really, really high end. For me, the threshold is running water. As long as there's running water, there can be some levels of comfort, and this place really nailed it. So I get where you're coming from, Brandy. Like, I don't want to sleep in the woods. I like a bed and air conditioning and running water. But that's where glamping comes in. If you do it well, you build it out. It does take a little bit more of an investment than just a yurt or a canvas tent, but it's a cool experience. So
I will say,
excited to see what Outdoorsy does with this, and I hope it's not just a marketing ploy. I hope they actually do deploy that revenue and get more people in tents.
yeah, it's definitely a story we'll keep following. I'm excited for the sake of, I think vacation rentals was a great opportunity for a lot of people to get into hospitality without the financial burden of like maybe getting a loan to buy a hotel or makeover, do a motel makeover type project. So I think glamping is also a great entry kind of level for a lot of people with a yurt or with some kind of lower end glamping style. But yeah, I'm excited for this. Hopefully we'll keep following it, see where they deploy the capital. But I want to get the main man, Jamie Lane. I want your opinion. I want you to kind of kick us off with some of the earning call kind of data stats. And then also, I know Brandy kind of asked you pre-recording and pre-live, what's some fun industry data maybe that we're, not ready to hear yet, but would love to hear anything inside the numbers and the data with you, my friend.
Yeah. So as you guys know, I love listening to earnings calls. So these past few weeks were
heaven on earth for you.
We're great for sort of getting the tidbits of what's happening. And you can really put the performance in two different sort of buckets. And you've got what happened with Vrbo and Vacasa, sort of the broader vacation rental market. And we've seen the pain that's happening with the declines in revenue that are showing up there. So, and Expedia reported revenue growth of 6% in Q2 and called out that Vrbo was actually a headwind towards the growth. So they're seeing declining revenues for the Vrbo platform. And in our data set, we're seeing listings for Vrbo were essentially flat year over year, like up 1 or 2%. We saw average ADRs, average occupancy, and all down, revenue down as a whole in North America in Vrbo. So that's and some weakness happening in the industry. Vacasa called out that their revenues were down in Q2 as well. So broadly strong headwinds in the vacation rental market, especially in North America and even Europe and the sort of destination markets. You then look at Airbnb, which is still has a big percent of their inventory being urban. They saw nights booked up 11%. They saw revenue up 18%. They saw listing growth up 19%, which is just such strong growth on the supply side. And Sonder, I feel like they're a company you sort of love to hate. Revenue growth was up 30%. So they're seeing, I'm still not profitable, but still strong growth there. And maybe goes back to some of the viral tweet comment of like the collapse in Airbnb. I love sort of the public data to sort of disprove that. But if you've got revenue growing at 18%, if you look at listing growth, including China, they call it that 19% is ex-China. Listing growth of 12%. Revenue for Airbnb still growing faster than overall listings, which means average revenue per listing was actually up globally for the average Airbnb listing around the world. So travel's back, global travel more than anything, and some weakness in North America, but overall it's been a strong summer and strong bookings and continue.
So for Vrbo, I don't know, this is just kind of my like a musing, but for their listing growth, the technical backend component of actually distributing on Vrbo is very cumbersome and has been for the last couple of years. There really hasn't been an improvement to that. And so when you're thinking about, adding your inventory to their platform, it's just not easy. Like when we migrated our PMS in September of last year, we were told that it might take 4 weeks to do that migration for Verbo when we already had existing account. Like the infrastructure was all there. It should have been much easier. So that's just my like personal experience with it. I know I've talked to other people who have had that. So if you if you don't have, if your back end solutions are not easy, then that's just a friction point to that growth. And then for the Airbnb listing growth, I mean, I see it literally growing in front of me in South Florida. It is just, there is like every day I look out, I'm like, there is a new 1,000-unit condo building, that's gone up, that's short-term rental friendly. And I don't love that for me personally, but Airbnb, I'm sure loves it. So yeah, those are just, all good. Like these are all good things for travel coming back. And I think I can sometimes be a little biased because, I have a personal stake in that supply growth, maybe slowing down a little bit.
Well, I will say we have seen, to come to Verbo's defense here, just because sponsor us, we would love to have you guys on the show. To have the back of Verbo, I think, we have seen them, and I think Tim kind of mentioned this when he was on the show, going into their back end tech shift to be all on the same type of back end connectivity due to the One Key program now. So I think I just saw something from Dennis at Skift, who was kind of talking about the Verbo tech shift and how they're transitioning that now. So hopefully that changes, because I think you're right, Brandy. The more easy it can be streamlined for the back end, the front end will be a lot better. And then at the end of the day, hopefully companies like Romy will, obviously see a bigger increase within that Verbo platform rather than the Airbnb side.
Yeah, we prefer, like, we love Verbo guests. Like, we enjoy working with the company. It's just like that technical component.
Yeah.
And then your comment about Sonder being the company we love to hate. I mean, for I think a lot of the urban operators, we need them to succeed. They are the biggest case study for the viability of our business. And so anytime, I mean, I love some of their properties. I mean, I won't say no. They got some pretty sweet stuff out there, but I definitely want them to succeed because it makes, my job a lot easier. But then also in their earnings call, they were talking about their Powered by Sonder feature, which is where they're taking over like boutique hotels. And I think it's a smart way to have to not standardize their product and just say it's powered by. And so I'm really curious to see how that's going to work out. And they're really leaning heavily now into the hotel side, trying to straddle both. And I understand that from just a business, their kind of business building perspective. But I am curious to see how the blending of that works out. If they can really truly run on all the same software and things like that.
Was there anything on the earnings call that talked about them potentially being delisted from the NASDAQ? Because didn't they get a notice just like Sonder did? So I'm curious to know where they are with getting back.
Both companies will split their stock, and they'll make their share price come back over $1 through manipulation, not manipulation, but just doing a stock split.
Manipulation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
call it is what it is.
Neither company's going to be delisted. They'll make it work. And what I did get excited about was they mentioned again of the opportunity for additional revenue, Airbnb. So, and going into the service opportunities, both on the guest and host side. So what can they be offering guests to make it more like a resort hotel experience? The sort of curated experiences, the additional things, getting a chef in. So what can they, and working with outside partners, start to offer to make that experience that much better? And then the host marketplace of all these additional services that they can be bringing to their hosts to make hosting easier, which gets me excited because we sort of live and operate in that host services side. And I know they're working on it, and really excited to see what they can be bringing. Because we all know, and you look at what happened in so many businesses of monetizing and the marketplace around it. And with such a big marketplace around Airbnb, like that's a huge opportunity for them. And getting all these great services that we know are out there in front of
isn't Vitor 50% of TripAdvisor's revenue? Something insane like that. So
Something
adding
crazy.
the activities on top of it is literally keeping TripAdvisor alive.
And I think it might have been a quote that you said, Michael, on a recent podcast of like, I'm categorizing Craigslist and turning that into real businesses and built so much value. And there's so much that can happen around this space.
You listened to the Zach Boozicruise podcast then, eh?
I did.
I was gonna say, behind the stage, shout out to Zach.
The thing about the Airbnb marketplace that I think I can just kind of see this happening right now, there's a split, especially in our industry, and people get very fired up about it, between like the quote Airbnb hosts who have a couple of units and then professional operators, and the Airbnb hosts who aren't part of the whole kind of like VRMA STR ecosystem. So when you have Airbnb potentially offering like their dynamic pricing software, or like basically going in and taking businesses that already exist and having their own version, if you're an Airbnb quote, host, I feel like this is just going to keep you in that ecosystem even more, which is exactly what Airbnb wants. But I don't know if that's what's best for the industry as a whole, because you really start this like continued segmentation of, these it's the same product, but it's creating these like, yeah.
And to loop it back to the top of our discussion, when you have 100% of your exposure on Airbnb and they make a unilateral decision for you, it can really screw you. You can be completely out of business. So diversify. Don't have 100% of your traffic coming from any source. Direct even. Don't have 100% of your traffic. So, it's diversify and make sure you put in guardrails so you can't be as terribly affected one way or another.
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome. Well, this has been such a great episode. I always love when Jamie's on. We get our data nerd fix. And
can't say that, Brandy.
What?
I thought it was okay when friends say it.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
I was gonna say,
we're friends, Jamie. Plus I like, it's just like, these are like the concrete numbers. This is like adding legitimacy to the things that the three of us are sometimes just spouting off on a weekly basis. But for all of our TravelNet listeners, there is the next conference happening at the end of September. It is September 24th through the 27th. So if you haven't gotten your tickets for that, definitely sign up. And what's also exciting is we're going to have Ryan Bailey on in the next couple of weeks. So he'll be, talking all about TravelNet and Track. So send in any questions you might have or things you want us to talk about with him.
Yeah, the conversation of us always going to buy or build tech. We're actually going to hear from a tech founder who's going to talk about building some technology. So that'll be fun. And then to give a couple other teasers, I want to just say to all of our listeners, to the live viewers, everybody, we've got to do our media planning conversation the last week or so as what we want to see kind of the future of GMH. And we have a lot of exciting things to announce. I'm not going to fully share them today, but next week we'll have some fun announcements going into exciting guests, some new faces and topics, and of course, more ways to engage with us beyond the audio. So I'm excited. This is something to get really, I don't know, it gets me out of bed in the morning on top of wine from Sojo and in good taste. But at the end of the day, I'm pumped for the way that the show is going, and just want to give my super greatest gratitude and thanks to everyone who listens and tunes in and engages with us, because without you we would not be broadcasting every Monday. So we love you guys. And any final closing thoughts from the three of you before we wrap it up? Go ahead, Michael.
If anyone has any programs or donations or ways to help Maui, let us know, and we're happy to be a megaphone for those organizations.
100%. Glad you said that. Thank you. Yeah, let us know. You can send any information to us either directly on LinkedIn or anywhere else. But if you want to set it up, you can connect with our producer, Kelsey, KELSEY at hospitality.fm is her email. And she will help us get all this set up for the next promotion and social media push. So really appreciate anyone who sends us that information. Jamie, anything fun, exciting for you coming up in the next couple of weeks? Shout out to also the STR Data Lab podcast that you guys run, because I heard a recent conversation that you guys were talking about with all the numbers, and it got me excited. So figured, give you that opportunity.
Yeah, so I'm not traveling for a bit, and we've got some big new exciting news that we'll be sharing soon from AirDNA, probably I think in the next couple of weeks. So I'm excited to share it. Can't say anything yet, but big news coming.
Ooh, way to drop a big teaser. I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
Next episode, I'll be able to share more.
Awesome. Well, Jamie, we love having you on. Thanks for geeking out with us a little bit. And of course, like always, for all of our live viewers and our listeners, we'll see you again next week.